Hello everybody, welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. This is Conan part 41, drawing comics. I am your host, and here is where I left off last time, which is nowhere. It's a blank page. No, I'm just starting out a new panel in the paper, the page I was working on before. I'm going to show you guys, those of you who are just seeing it for the very first time. I kind of started inking it because, to be honest, I haven't done inking in a really long time, and I missed it. So I just started inking it, and halfway through it, I was like, wow, this brush pen kind of sucks. I'm going to show you guys the results and kind of like what I'm thinking right now. There it is. So yeah, this is it right here. I've been using this guy right here, and it is good for its purpose, which is if you're like on the go somewhere, if you're like standing up and you're doing some examples or something, you don't have like that whole like setup basically where you could dip your brush in some ink and actually start inking stuff. So it's really good for that. It's good for mobility in a sense, or if you're like out, let's say if you're out, you're painting, or you want to use some inks or something, this is good for that. But it dries out, so you have to clean it every time to make sure that it flows. But it's a bit of a hassle, I'm gonna say, because to refill it, and then you have to really make sure you clean it properly, and then you dry it properly, and because it dries out, I'm gonna say I'm not favoring it. I was looking at some of John Buscema's videos of him like inking, and he was just using a brush pen. Like, all this is brush pen. Not a brush pen, just a simple brush. Something like this. You know, he was just using that. And he was able to make, like, you could see how fine some of these lines are and how broad some of these lines are as well. But he got so good at it that you don't need these technical things there. So while I'm at my desk, I'm going to switch over to just using a brush. I'm going to dip it in some black ink and just use it that way. And that just kind of gets rid of that, this festering sort of idea in my head that the brush pen isn't actually full black ink, because you do want, like, if you wash it, some of the water dilutes the ink, you know, and then if you just squeeze out on it, eventually you dry it out, but it still kind of dilutes the black ink. Whereas I'm always going to get fresh black ink with this, and the bristles are a lot easier to clean when it comes to this one. Yeah, so I'm going to just kind of transition to a very traditional form of inking. You know, if you could achieve, like, look at that thin little lines there on the hand. You could achieve that using a brush pen. I want to get that good, you know. And I think he also used pen nibs, you know, that are metal, and that kind of allows thinner lines, which I do have. So I might consider that as well. I might actually just really revert to old school stuff. Anyways, so I was testing things out on this one. I'm pretty much done with this. I'm gonna I don't know if I should. I'm just thinking about whether I should ink today. Nah, I really do want to finish this page and move on to the next page. I finished up all of these before in this old sketchbook of mine. Great sketchbook. I highly encourage you guys to try this one out. It's a Canson. It's a small one. I'm still waiting to hear back from them. I don't think I'm gonna hear back from them. I'm gonna have to just go to like a art store and check out something similar to this. But for the small size, this is an excellent sketchbook because it's able to withstand multiple wet mediums. Like, this is watercolor that you're seeing right here. I'm also using India inks. I'm also using regular ink. And it's not, you can't see it through to the other side, which is great, unlike this sketchbook here. The texture on it is excellent. I'm gonna say it's like, for me personally, it's perfect texture. It's right in between. It has a little bit of softness to it, while it's still a pretty thick, paper. So the pencil glides on it very nicely. It's not like slick, and it's not so rough where it like grinds the pencil and gives like jaggedy lines. It's a nice soft feel to it. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm gonna say that's the best way to explain it. It works very well with the blue ink, the blue pencil, and regular HB pencil. It feels excellent. So I really like this sketchbook. I'm going to just show you guys these panels that I worked on. And some results on there. As you can see, here is here. I was playing around with some watercolors. This is here. That's here. I'm going to say the next page. Yep. Here. This is here. And that's there. Finish this one. So I'm up to this. And yeah, that way we could start a fresh page. Oh, bummer. I just recognized that it's not in focus. Sorry about that, y'all. I'm gonna have to eventually remember to keep looking. So yeah, let me just quickly show you guys again the completed pages. Here, as you could see, here is here. Whoops. Here is here. Here is here. So I'm not gonna do it all over again. I'd rather continue on, which is over here. I'm pretty excited about this panel because it's faces, and I love drawing faces. I'm a big fan. Not only faces, but his faces. I really enjoy how John Buscema draws faces. I recently acquired John Buscema, the Michelangelo of comics. It's a collection of his work. I also got John Buscema's sketchbook, which shows all of his sketches that he's done for himself, for fun, for testing things out before making them final. Beautiful collection. I highly encourage you guys to buy one of those if you're into John Buscema. If you like this art and you want to see more of it, I'm going to say some of the best drawings are in both of those books. The sketchbook alone, I think the other one is a little bit pricey. Michelangelo's is a little John Buscema, the Michelangelo of comics, is a little bit pricey, but the sketchbook one is pretty good. It's pretty affordable. It's a great collection. You're not losing out on anything, actually. They're both very unique to in their own right. So if you could get both of them, that's even better. But yeah, really great work. At some point, maybe in the future, I'm gonna show you guys excerpts from there. But for now, I'm just gonna continue working on these panels here. Now, if you guys missed out the very first episode of Drawing Comics, I encourage you guys to check it out. It's loaded with content. I show a 5-minute preview, a 5-minute short film about John Buscema that I created, and it gives you guys some some insight into his journey, and of course some work that he's done, some beautiful sketches that he's done. It's overall a really fun little short movie that I made to introduce you guys to John Buscema. I also talk about other artists as well. You guys can check that out. And you can access it by going to the video section and filtering it based on collections, which will open up a folder for you for every single stream. And one of the streams is going to be a highlights folder, where you could find just the 5-minute flick, or you could head over to drawing comics folder and check out the very first stream there that has other artists that I mentioned, other content talking about drawing comics and other illustrators and such. So anyways, I'm going to continue on with this panel right here. Now I'm going to start out the way I like to do it is by drawing the frame. And I think it's very useful. It sets the limits. You know, I know how big it has to be. Now this is another great thing about drawing from comics, is that you become familiar with the process. You know, if you eventually you're gonna have a project, right? And you're working towards that, and it's better to start somewhere than to be completely new to it and be intimidated by the entire process. So this gives you an idea of like, how long is it going to take me to create a panel, let's just say, and based off of that you could be like, it's going to take me a day to do a page, which really is excellent, or it's going to take me a day to do a panel, you know, and then from there you could kind of gauge your speed and try to improve yourself. See, this is like a good example of how you use yourself as competition. If you start out by doing a panel a day, you want to bring yourself to doing 2 panels a day. So you could be like, all right, now I'm going to take it to the next level with myself and push myself to create 2 panels at the same level of quality as the first one, etc., etc., etc. It just highlights this idea. I don't believe in competition. I think it's incredibly toxic. I think just learning from people, learning from you know, what they've developed. It's a different way of looking at progress. I think competition is very toxic. People start to resent each other when it comes to that. People rub things in, whatever. It breeds aggressive environments. It breeds toxic behavior. I'm not into that, especially in the art field. I don't encourage it. I think that everybody has a unique voice when it comes to art. There isn't, it's not a competition. You know, there is no better than, because the voices are unique. You know, the way John Buscema draws is different than the way that Jim Lee draws, the way that Kim Jung-gi drew. Like, all of these are great artists, and there isn't a number 1, a number 2, or number 3 in that scenario. They're all great in their own way. So I think that's the best way to perceive art in general. It's about self-expression. It's about creativity. It's not about it's not an ego trip. It's not an ego battle. And I think it's a pretty toxic way to view that field. Yeah, I think the best competition is with yourself. As I mentioned, you can set yourself up for improvement. You know, you could be like, okay, well, I want to be better at drawing comics, so I need to become better at drawing the figure. I need to become faster. What do I do to get there? You know, and slowly build yourself towards that endeavor. Anyways, yeah, so starting out by drawing comics actually allows you to become familiar with the process. Like, you first start out with the frame, then what do? You know, it allows you to practice things like backgrounds, understanding backgrounds. How do you draw a car? How do you draw? It's all there for you. You know, you don't have to sit there wondering what to do next or waiting for inspiration to kick in. You always have something there to work on. And I think that's the biggest step. You know, I remember for me, before I started taking on this journey, I would wait for inspiration to kick in. And this is a while ago. But it would be one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling it. And then there would be a day where I'm like, oh, I really want to sit down and draw. And I would spend hours and hours and hours. And then the next day, it would be different, so I kind of relied on this very intuitive approach, which is the wrong way to go. That's not how you get better. I think it's the wrong perception of the art field. Like, a lot of people, I think, are I guess misinformed when it comes to it. They think that art is this very intuitive sort of thing where it's like, it really just comes to you, and it's a gift of some sort, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And I feel like in some ways it's stopping people from actually pursuing it because of that. It's kind of like brainwashing in a way. It does eventually become that, because like I said, you train in anything enough and it becomes an intuitive process. Same way as when it came to you learning to read, you had to first study the alphabet, and you had to really take your time practicing a lot of it, and writing and reading and remembering words and how to spell them. And it was a very technical process. But now, when you think of how do you spell "and," you don't sit and like wonder and recite the alphabet to remember the letters. It just intuitively comes to you, and you write it very quickly without even thought. So the same thing happens when it comes to drawing. You eventually, after learning all these very technical things, it becomes intuitive. Granted, there are some people who start out that way, but the point isn't to be intuitive about it. The point is to get good at art, to get good at illustration, to get good at playing music or writing or whatever the field that you're interested in might be. That's the point. So if it takes you longer, that's not a big deal. And the important thing is you're gonna get there because you're dedicated. So yeah, I think just sitting down and drawing comics prevents you from venturing into that wrong mindset of like, oh, I have to feel inspired to do it. I have to know, it has to come to me in order for me to sit down and draw. Now, this is a great way for you to practice every day. You have the material, it teaches you everything. From drawing buildings to face expressions to poses to camera angles to perspective. It's all here. The only thing you have to do is push yourself. Don't make excuses, and sit down without a second thought and draw. That's how you're gonna get really good at it. So multiple reasons why it's excellent to draw from comics. So pick your favorite comic. Pick something that you really enjoy and draw it from cover to cover. Draw every page and push yourself. As I mentioned, best competition is yourself. So tell yourself, like, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna draw it exactly as I see it. Not only are you gonna improve your hand-eye coordination, you're just gonna level up and push your ability to the next level. Push your attention to detail to the next level. Improve your hand-eye coordination. All those things are gonna start to come into play. So that's all that's really required. No need to think about camera angles. No need to think about it. It's here for you. You just have to practice your craft. Now, I'm not really satisfied with this whatsoever. It looks kind of weird. So I'm going to scratch that. Trying to pinpoint where it looks weird. See, it has something to do with the brows. The brows, the eye. Gonna take a break a little bit because I feel like I'm like getting really sucked into tiny little details, so I'm gonna start working on the next part. Now I'm paying attention to the distance between objects here. So for instance, her hair, right? How far away is it from the nose here? And I'm gonna make sure that that distance is the same. I'm gonna make some marks as placeholders for the eyes, for the nose, for the mouth, because I think I'm gonna have to move things around. paying attention to the distance between the side of her face and the mouth. Like where's that? How far away is it from that? These are just little tools to make sure that things come proportionate. Because you might draw the mouth exactly as it is in here, but it might be too big, you know, or it might be a little bit too to the left or too to the right. So it's not just about the accuracy of what you're drawing. It's also all these other things that come into play as well. Which is why it's important to have these tools to accomplish that. I think key here is in how big the eyes are. It's a very delicate stage because you don't want to make it too big. And even though it's such a delicate stage, and it really depends on like such small little details, it still retains a certain emotion. Like if you look at her face, it shows a little bit of concern and apprehension. And that's what I really love about his work, that regardless of how small the figures of the frame is, he still puts in the time to like really show expression and mood and proportion, and maintains the proportion. Just little details like this line that's in between the brows to suggest a little bit of furrowing, right? I absolutely love that. Just shows how much he loves drawing. Like it's not like, let me just finish this and move on. He's really putting time and care even to the smallest details of a small panel. Speaking of small details, I actually saw, you know, this is a different artist. I saw Dali's work, and there was an exhibition, and I was so shocked to see some of his most famous paintings in very small canvases. Like I'm going to say some of them were maybe like from here, if you guys could see my finger here, or like from here all the way down to the base, which isn't that far. So like from here, I'm gonna say all the way to the bottom. Like that's how big a lot of his paintings were. And it wasn't until much later, actually, like his much later work, and maybe a select few of his paintings, where things started to get big in scale. But I was so shocked to see it. There was like such a huge crowd of people, and you know, I got into that crowd, and what I saw was like what they're staring at was his paintings, because you have to get that close in order to see the detail, in order to see what's going on over there. And it was pretty shocking. For those of you who have never seen Dali's work, I encourage you guys to check it out. I'm sure at some point at the Art Lounge Alley I'm gonna introduce Dali, and in fact have his book. So it'll be pretty cool to talk about him, do a little bit of an intro discussing his life and his work and him as an artist in general. It's very interesting. So that's something to look forward to. And to reassure you guys, there's so much content for the Art Lounge Alley, either from history or even modern day. As I mentioned in the previous stream, next week I'm going to be introducing a new special intro. It's not going to be just Gil Elvgren. That's going to continue. I still got I still got ways to go. I still haven't shown you guys the book. I introduced the book, but I haven't really shown you all the work that's in it. So there's a lot more to come from there. But yeah, it's going to be a new intro. Just a little hint, it's going to be a concert. A little concert. Hint, hint. And I'm really really happy that you guys are going to get to see it. I'm going to be happy to see it again, because it definitely has its own energy. It's great work. So look forward to that. That's going to be next week. This week is going to be a continuation of Gil Elvgren, which is coming up this Friday. More beautiful work coming from Norman Rockwell, one of his friends, another amazing artist. For those of you who missed it, you guys can always check out the previous streams, going back to part 1 by heading over to the video section and filtering it based on collection, where you will see a folder for the project stream, which is where the full episode is. You could also check out the highlights folder, which also has all of the full streams for Gil Elvgren, to catch up and see what you missed. There's definitely great content on there. It's worth just checking them out for that purpose, not even for the sake of catching up, but just to check out some of the other artists that have inspired Gil Elvgren in his journey to becoming one of the best pinup artists to date. I'm gonna say he's beautiful, beautiful work, and you guys will see what I mean when you do take a look and see his work. So yeah, special stream this Friday. More Gil Elvgren this Friday. Kind of in a zone here. I'm going into detail when there's still more to do. More sketching. Like, I still haven't done the body yet. And his body, his friend's body. Now I'm keeping it light still. I did for a moment get out of that zone. Paying attention now to the head, right? Look at where the head is. It's a little bit lower because it's in perspective. It's a little further away from them, so it's a little lower than her head. Keeping it light. Now here's a little example of another helpful tool that you can use when it comes to gaining accuracy. Now pay attention to this negative space. See that? The space between the bicep and his waist. There's like a little triangle there. So you could focus on just creating that triangle. It's kind of flipping your perspective, right? Instead of focusing on drawing parts of the figure, like his bicep or whatever, you're drawing something abstract, like this weird looking triangle space. And that helps you maintain a very accurate distance between objects, distance between the arm and the waist, because you could just try to draw it close to each other, but you might be a little bit off. This is an excellent way, pulling out this tool, you know, paying attention to negative space allows you to attain that better. And it's a good way to kind of refresh your vision, because something that happens, you know, and this happens to me very frequently. I think it happens to everybody, regardless of what skill level you are, like where you are in your journey of becoming better. You kind of become enamored by the drawing. You're like under a spell, sort of. You know, you don't recognize mistakes anymore. You know, you're so used to the image that your eye isn't paying attention to little details as much. Yeah, it's like kind of being under a spell. And sometimes people take a break, they walk away from a painting or a drawing to come back and look at it with fresh eyes, kind of like forgetting the image a little bit, like making it dissipate from your memory for some time, so that you come back and look at it with fresh eyes and notice little details again. And sometimes you do it by flipping the image upside down and looking at it that way. It kind of like snaps you out of that mode a bit. You're seeing things differently. Another thing people do, and this depends on whether you're doing it traditionally or digitally. If you're doing it traditionally, people will hold a mirror up to the drawing and look at the drawing in the mirror, and they'll start to see certain things by comparing it, let's say, to the reference. They're like, oh yeah, it's a little bit off here as opposed to how it is here, and you kind of start making that correction. And once you notice it in the mirror, you kind of start to notice it in your original drawing. If you're doing it digitally, there's a tool, like you could flip the canvas horizontally, and that way you could see it in this like different sort of perspective that also snaps you out of that mode. So there are these little tools that people use if you don't want to take a break and you want to just like continue working on it. You could depend on those methods to get you there. Sorry about the background, y'all. I'm gonna have to turn it down a little bit. Hold on one second. I'm still binging on Doom Patrol. It's such a good series. I really love the mixture of their creativity and the philosophy in it. Like there's a lot of like really philosophical ideas, like complex ideas about relationships and people, and just makes me think a lot about all different types of interactions, and I really like about it. And it also is great at breaking that up with humor. Like it has this very interesting, sometimes dark and funny sense of humor. Sometimes it's just really weird and funny because of that. So they do it intentionally. Like all of it is very well done intentionally. The character development is great. The acting is great. I really like Brendan Fraser in it. He's actually like one of my favorite characters in there. Don't want to be anything like them, you know, the characters there, but for the sake of like fantasy and you know, just imaginative sort of things, I do enjoy as a character. And I think that's important, like to distinguish the difference between like, you know, like TV series and characters on there and how and what they're like, as opposed to people acting like these people. You know, sometimes people don't know the difference between it, and they're like so drawn into TV series and characters that they go out into the real world and start acting like these people, and that's just, I think that's crazy. And a lot of these shows, the portrayals of these characters is to say, like, don't do these things. You know, they might be funny because they're just so ridiculous in some ways. Like, you don't want to act that way. And it's just a really dangerous zone when people are so enamored by characters that they can't even develop themselves. Yeah, they're just walking around pretending to be in a TV show all day. That's weird. I think it develops some sort of like psychological dependency and crippling. It has like some sort of crippling effect where people don't grow at all, and they're just stuck in these like TV series modes of like personalities and characters and stuff. It's weird. It's like trying to go out there and be like Superman or Batman or whatever. It's weird. You don't want to do any of those things. That would be really stupid. But you could say that they're your favorite characters and it's fun to watch them, right? So it's like just having to distinguish that, I think, is really important. And it's kind of sad to see because those people never discover themselves. You know, they never try to like venture out and to be who they are, like to discover their own personality. It's like they're just emulating things around themselves. It's absolutely crippling. So when it comes to like relationships, people don't even know how to act because their like entire mode of operation is based on limited characters. You know, like they're not you know, they're just like TV scripts basically that are very limited for whatever the timeline is. What, like an hour, 30 minutes or something, and people are just like quoting or behaving in that manner, which is only for like, you know, an hour and a half of your time. It doesn't set up an example of how you should be for your entire life on all situations. You know, so that's what I mean when it's crippling. Like, people just don't know how to behave outside of these scripted personalities. Scripted behaviors. I'm noticing a little bit of a difference between my frame and the original frame. It's not a huge difference, but for example, the distance between her chin and this like V-neck of her shirt is pretty long. But yeah, actually, just before I got into that train of thought about emulating characters on TV or whatever, it's a great show. If you guys haven't seen it, Doom Patrol, it's worth every single minute. Very creative, very fun storyline, excellent acting, great cinematography. It has it all, I'm gonna say. And I think they're returning soon for season 5. So I'm really excited about that. Can't wait to see what they come up with next. And I'm gonna say they couldn't pick a better actor for Cyborg. It's like, it's just how, I guess, what am I basing off of? Comics, or maybe even Teen Titans, like way back then when I used to watch it. And I think the actor really really gets that character. But pretty much all of them are great, aside from Brendan Fraser, aside from Cyborg, the guy who plays Cyborg. Pretty much all the actors there are excellent. And as I mentioned, great humor. I really enjoy their humor. So just kind of add it in the background, and each time I notice there are certain like little things that differ. You know, like I'll notice like a line that I missed before. And it's a very clever line. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, actually, and I guess it's right about that time anyways, I ended up completing the project over the weekend. So you guys are you're gonna see a new project starting tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Something new that I'm gonna be working on. I'm still debating on what that should be. I have an idea, but there's like 2 that I'm considering. One of them you guys have seen before if you are a regular here at the Outer Lounge Alley. It is a painting that I started a while back of Socrates that I really like. It's one of my favorite paintings done by David, a French painter. It's one of my favorite painters, actually. Beautiful work. So yeah, it's something that I started a while back and kind of been wanting to get back into like painting, even digitally, you know, like just going back to that. So I might do that, or I might start something else. It's fan art. I'm gonna say that it's fan art. of another series actually that I used to watch a long time ago. It's slightly cheesy. It's nowhere good as good as Doom Patrol, as I just mentioned. But if I'm gonna say I watched bad TV, this is probably it. And it's not even that bad. You know, I still think it's, you know, I was revisiting it today to see what I would do, and kind of miss it. Kind of miss the characters, and it's a lot less heavy, I'm gonna say. It's kind of just like a fun show to watch. It's like a mix between CSI and, I'm gonna say, I don't know, something fantastical. Can't really think of one off the top of my head. But they've done an interesting mix there. Where it's like crime, detective, mixed in with like grim fairy tales, which is like fantasy. So it's pretty fun, and I looked at some of the CGI on it and how they were able to create some of the characters, and it's very imaginative. I just forgot, you know, it's been years actually since I've seen it, so it reminded me actually what appealed to me. Its own style. I'm gonna say like it reminds me a little bit of what's the name of that game? Something Scroll. Damn, it's a really popular game too. I can't remember off the top of my head. Give me a second, let me look it up. Elder Scroll. It just instantly popped into my head as I started typing it. Elder Scroll, like, so it looks like the creatures from that game Elder Scroll, and a little bit more, I'm gonna say too. So yeah, if you guys want to see some like slightly mind-numbing TV series, check that out. Check out Grimm. Pretty sure it's still available on Amazon. So I'm thinking about doing fan art for that for some time, which is also going to be painter style. And during my off time, I'm probably going to do more stuff from, well, most definitely I'm going to be doing more stuff from imagination, more character development and scenes. And I want to do more with that robot, the upright bass playing robot. I want to do some more scenes that I've been kind of cooking up in my imagination. So I'm going to try to focus on like actually executing it. It's a pretty interesting perspective. I'm going to try to, I'm trying to nail down. But that's the thing with the Art Lounge Alley, guys. Sometimes you don't know what's coming. So I might actually be doing a little bit on that project, and then one day I might switch and show you guys some progress with what I'm cooking up for my imagination. And with that said, everybody, thanks for tuning in. This was a blast as always. It is my favorite time of the day, of the night, to stream for you guys, to talk about art and everything in between. So thanks for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow, same time and place, right here at the Art Lounge Alley.